So let's get started. The Georgia Department of Education and the Georgia Career Information Center have partnered together to provide the Georgia Career Information System, or GCIS, and the administration tools to every public middle school and high school in the state of Georgia. So some of you I'm very well familiar with, and some of you, welcome to the family. As a returning middle school site coordinator, you should have a pretty good grasp on the basic GCIS features and files that are available, including the navigation. Today we'll take a look at several of the GCIS features that will help you to enhance your career advisement efforts at your middle schools. If you are new to GCIS and are unfamiliar with the setup, I would definitely encourage you to attend the GCIS for New Middle School Users webinar, which is actually scheduled for tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th, and it'll be at the same time. And so even if you are a seasoned user and just kind of want to get a refresher, that option is available, so please feel free to go to the same page where you registered for this session and click on the registration for that session, and we'll be happy to have you there as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this little Microsoft Word window and take you to the actual session itself. We're going to begin by going to www.gcic.teachnet.edu. And when you come to our main screen, you'll see over on your left-hand side that you have two areas that say click here to enter Georgia Career Information System and click here to enter Georgia Career Information System Junior. When you click on either one of those items, it actually takes you to an area that is going to request a username and a password. And so I'm going to go ahead and click here to enter Georgia Career Information System. And you'll see that the first thing it'll do, again, as I alluded to, is it will ask you for a username and password. So to enter into our system, there are actually two sets of usernames and passwords that will take you inside of the resource. The first way is what is called a generic site username and password. Each one of your schools has a site-assigned username and password that would allow your students to log into the system and be able to explore the content within it. So your students will be able to look at information such as the assessments. They'll have an opportunity to look at different files such as job search. They can look at post-secondary schools. They can look at the 17 career clusters, and so on and so forth. But what they cannot do with the generic username and password is save that information. And so what we are doing is we're actually sending out the generic username and password to your school site coordinator. If you happen to be your school site coordinator and you have not received your username and password, please check with your principal to ensure that he or she has sent an email to us assigning you as such. The second way to log into our system is via what is called a My Portfolio username and password. And the My Portfolio username and password is actually unique to each one of your students. So when your student logs in with that information, they'll not only be able to explore the system, they'll also be able to save their individual assessments. They'll be able to save information such as their favorite career clusters, their favorite occupations, or any other items that are available within the system. So for today's presentation, I'm actually going to log in with my portfolio username and password so that you can see all of the resources that will be available to your students. So I've entered my username and password. I'm going to go ahead and click Sign In. There we go. So I have clicked Sign In, and this allows me to see the GCIS interface. This is the exact same screen that your students will come to when they log into the system. And a way to differentiate whether you are logged in as a generic user versus a portfolio user, you'll immediately see a student's name located on the far right-hand side. So this student's name is Cindy, and Cindy is attached to ABC High School. And so when we log into the system with our portfolio, it actually also enables an additional tab called My Portfolio, where you can see all the ins and outs of that student's career development guidance as they have moved forward through navigating our system. Some of the things that you can do with a My Portfolio, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that it has Cindy's name duplicated. And it also has a little drop-down arrow where you have different functions that are available specifically for this student. So you have an opportunity to view the contents of the portfolio. The student can actually share their portfolio with the visitor. A student can print out their portfolio. They can edit an image. And they can also change their individual account settings. And so I'm going to quickly show you how you can view the contents within that portfolio. So again, hovering over Cindy's name and clicking on View My Portfolio. You'll come to our portfolio landing page, which would allow the students to see different content areas that are within that particular construct and actually pull up that information. So you'll see that there are a series of questions in which the students can navigate through. So where are the pages and results I've saved? Under here, they can look at their favorite items. They can look at their sort and assessment results, and they can also look at stored files and links. And to see that content within that area, the student can either click on Expand Overview, or they can click on the corresponding plus sign. And so when I click on those areas, I can actually go into each one of those and actually see that type of information. The next thing that I can do when I hover over Cindy's name at the top is I can click on Share My Portfolio. And the Share My Portfolio is an opportunity to allow a visitor to see limited access of the information within that portfolio. So let's say that that student is working with a mentor, the student is working with a teacher as advisor, or even if the student wants to have their big brother, big sister to comment on the information within that portfolio, the student has an opportunity to actually set that up. And so the student would simply click on either Go to Visitors, or they can click on the visitor icon. And when I click on Go to Visitors, you'll see a listing of people that I've invited to my portfolio previously. I would click on Add Visitor on the far right-hand side. And I would create a username and a password for my visitor. I would enter that person's first and last name. And I would also enter an email address where I can send that information directly to that person. I would set an expiration date for that person. And then once I've entered that type of information into the system, I would then dictate what that person could actually see within that portfolio. So let me go ahead and quickly make a visitor account for you so you can see that information. All right, so I'm going to make one for my friend. And I would send an email to Ms. Douglas. And I will give her access to my portfolio through the 9th. And I'm going to click on Add. And now I can dictate exactly what this visitor can see within my portfolio. So I can say, hey, I need some information or I need some feedback on my career plan and my course planner. And I would update view. And when Mary logs into the username and password that I've just assigned to her, she will be able to see just those very components within my portfolio, provide me with feedback, and then I can use that to enhance my annual and ongoing career development throughout the year. I am now going to click on the house on the far left-hand side of the screen, and this will actually take me back to the home page of GCIS. The next item that I'd like to share with you that will help you guys with your annual and ongoing advisement with your students as you kind of do 2.0 with that information is what is called the personal learning plan. And the personal learning plan allows the students to set goals and make plans and kind of see where they've been in order for them to see where they're going to move forward. What it does is it actually displays important information that the students have saved within that portfolio and allows them again to make future plans based on where they've gone. So in order to see the student's personal learning plan, I'm going to hover over the My Portfolio tab, and I'm going to go down to Personal Learning Plan under the question, how do I create my personal learning plan? And when I click on that link, it takes me to a little introduction about what the personal learning plan is, and then I will click on Generate PDF. And you'll see on my screen, I'm actually working on Chrome, so it actually appears at the bottom. So I'm going to click on that PDF and open it right up. And it shows everything it is that I have stated within my personal learning plan, or PLP as we like to call it here in the office. So the first thing that you'll notice on this personal learning plan is you'll see the student's biographical information. You'll see the student's last name, his or her first name. You'll see the school where the student resides. If the student happened to have a student ID, you would be able to see that information, as well as that student's graduation year. Within this particular personal learning plan, you can see any career goals that that student has saved, again, within their portfolio. And if you ever wanted to go back and figure out exactly where this information is being pulled, you'll actually see a breadcrumb at the bottom of each one of these sections. So the My Career Goals actually are coming from the career plan, the Set Plans module, and the specific question, what are my career goals? So again, it cherry picks from important information that's already defined within that all-encompassing My Portfolio. The next thing you'll see is what the student's education plans are. So this particular student plans to obtain a bachelor's degree. And you can also see that she'd like to earn her bachelor's degree in science specifically, with a concentration in business management. On the next page for this student, you can actually see his or her assessment results. So you'll see again it cherry picks from all of the assessments that are available within the system. So you can see that this student has completed the Career Cluster Inventory 48 question version on November 16th, 2015. You can see that this student has also completed the 80 question version of the Career Cluster Inventory on 7/26/2016. And you can see that the student has also included notes or reflections on what they gained from that particular assessment. And so we have Learning Style Survey, which I'll show you guys that shortly. You have the Reality Check, Skills, and Work Importance Locator listed within this particular table. Next, you have the Career Clusters of Interest. One of the things that's different about Georgia than some other states is that here in the state of Georgia, we have 17 clusters. And so with the 17 clusters, the 17 being energy, we've actually built that into our system so that your students would be able to explore those particular paradigms and also be able to add that information to their personal learning plan and save it within their individual portfolio. Continuing down, you can see that the student has saved individual career clusters as well as occupations. This student has selected individual courses and has also selected a pathway, so you'll be able to see that type of data within the system. You also, if the student had saved any test scores, programs of study, post-secondary schools, all of that is encompassed within this personal learning plan. And again, because it gathers information from so many different places, and I know that you guys have to engage in that ongoing career exploration and advisement with the students, this would be an excellent resource that your students can actually use, and you can use with them in order to make those future plans. Okay. And lastly, there is a place that you can use this with your 8th grade transition, where you can actually have the students to sign. You can have mom and dad to sign, and you as either the counselor or advisor can sign this information so that you have a tangible document that you can put into the files, and again, demonstrate that you have engaged in that ongoing exploration. The next element that I'd like to show to you is what is called the Combined Report of Assessments. This is a really neat report because it allows your students to identify occupations that appear across several assessments that they may have taken over a period of time, and be able to see where do those particular assessments actually intersect with one another. So the place where you can locate the Combined Report of Assessments, I'm going to continue using that My Portfolio tab, and it is located under the question called, What reports can I run to show my progress? And so I'm going to click on Combined Reports of Assessment, and you'll also hear us frequently call this the CRA. And so my student Cindy has been in school for quite some time, so she has several iterations of each one of the assessments in which she can actually look at across different options. So the first way that we can do the combined report of assessments is that we can include only the most recent results of every assessment and sorting strategy that is available. Or I can select up to 8 of any of the assessments that I have completed. So I'll go ahead and leave it as the default, which is to include the most recent version. So you'll see that the most recent version for this student, when it comes to the Career Cluster Inventory 80 questions, the last time that Cindy took this was on July 26th. The last time that she took the Career Cluster Inventory 48 questions was November 16, 2015. And again, same is true for Oxsort, Interest Profiler 180. Looks like she did the Work Importance Locator on April 27th. She completed the Skills Assessment on August 12th of last year. So I'm now going to click on View Report. And when I click on View Report, I will be able to see a report of all of the assessment results and be able to see it in one seamless table. So the first thing that you'll notice at the top of this is that you'll be able to see the assessments in which I have selected, and each one of these represents a column on the table. So the second column is actually the 80-question version. Column 3 is the 48-question version of Career Cluster Inventory. Then you have Oxsort, Interest Profiler, Work Importance Locator, and lastly, you have your skills. If you wanted to look at the details, you'll see that there's a link that says Show Assessment Details. It'll actually tell you more information about what you have selected in terms of your setup for this particular combined report of assessments. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this again. And now what you will see is you will see the occupations that appear on X number of lists. So the most times that an assessment appears on lists within Cindy's combined report of assessment is 4. So there are 2 occupations that appear 4 times. So new accountant's clerk appears 4 times, and everywhere you see a check mark indicates that that has appeared on each one of those options. The same is true for receptionist. You can also next see occupations that appear on 3 of the assessments, and she has quite a few of those. And what I'd like to also point out to you on this particular combined report of assessment, if you see a little gold star on here, that indicates that the student has not only obtained this as an outcome on a particular set of assessments, but the student has also saved this particular occupation independently. So if you'd like to save an individual occupation from this particular sheet, you can actually click on the boxes on the left-hand side, and then you would click on Save Checked, and it'll allow you to add that to that student's portfolio. Okay. And so, initially, it's ordered by the number of occupations. If you want, the number of times that that occupation appears on various lists, the next thing you can do, you can also order these by the career cluster. And so now you can see these organized. You can see agriculture, food, natural resources career cluster and see which ones fall under that particular category. Then you have your architecture and construction career cluster. And again, these are listed alphabetically all the way down through the last cluster. And just to point out, we've actually built the energy cluster into here as well, so your students will have that construct here. So again, this particular paradigm is important, again, in your annual and ongoing career advisement in that it helps your students to identify common outcomes across various assessments. It can also help your students to see this and determine whether this is really something they want to look into further for their future planning. Your students can also use this information so they can take related courses. If they find that there's an occupation that repeats on their system, they may want to take up a pathway that specializes in a similar area. And it can also help you to determine if possibly move on when ready for this particular cluster or these occupations would benefit the student moving forward. So again, another really great advanced resource that you can use with your students. The next item that I'd like to show you is the course planner. And again, if you are a returning user of GCIS, you may have been introduced to our course planner, as this is an item that is required for your ongoing advisement for your 8th graders, whether you are doing the CCRPI requirements or you are doing the Bridge Law mandates, which stipulates that every 8th grade student has to have a 4-year high school plan. Our item is called the Course Planner Individual Graduation Plan, and it's actually available on 2 different tabs. You can locate the course planner under the Plan tab, under How do I plan my courses, under the Course Planner Individual Graduation Plan. And the second place where you can locate that is also under the My Portfolio construct. So under the My Portfolio construct, you'll see the very same question, how do I plan my courses? And the title is Course Planner Individual Graduation Plan. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that item. All right. So you'll notice that within our course planner, you can actually plan multiple years beyond just the 9 through 12 plan. So if you wanted to, you could actually begin this as early as your 6th grade year. If you just want to take a look at the items for the high school, you'll see that it says choose which year of study you would like to plan. And right now it's highlighted as all, which is our default. If you just want to look at the high school years, you can click on that little drop-down menu, and we can click on 9th grade, and you'll see that it'll drop us down to 9th grade. So within each one of the years that you are able to plan, you'll see that it has, again, 9th grade school year. And if you'd like, there's a little drop-down menu where you can assign which year your students will actually be a 9th grader. So let's say that my student will be a 9th grader next year, which will be for school year, since we're in 2016-2017, I'd be actually planning for 17-18. You will notice that you have a subject area, and you will always have a little drop-down menu, and I'm going to click on subject. And for the subject area, you actually have predefined subjects that are set up by GCIC, where you can then find courses that are specific to that particular area. Okay. So what I've done, I've actually uploaded a course catalog into our system. That is something that is unique to GCIS. If you have a course catalog that is particular to your school district, we can upload those courses directly to our system so that your students can make selections on courses they can actualize within your district. And so it's a really unique tool so they can, again, have that ongoing advisement with you so they can start planning in the 8th grade for grades 9 through 12. And as they matriculate through high school, they'll then be able to add additional information. We can plan all day, but what actually transpires may differ from that plan. So your students can actually go in and make this an integrated component that shows where they actually have been. So for this student, I've now clicked on Science, and I'm going to choose, and again, you'll see I have a whole host of courses in here. I'm going to choose in 9th grade, I want to take Environmental Physics. And what I can also do, and you'll see that there's some other information that popped up over on the right-hand side. I'll talk about that in just one second. I can also earmark which term I plan on taking my environmental physics. So if your school is on a semester calendar, if you're on a quarter calendar, or even if you want to earmark this as a full year course, you have that opportunity. I plan on taking a whole year of environmental physics. I can also choose whether this is a requirement or an elective for me. So I'm going to keep this as a requirement. And then here's something really cool that we can also do here at GCIC. So if you decide to upload courses into the system, you can also assign how many credits that particular class is worth. So if environmental physics is always available for 1 credit, you can make that distinction automatically for that student. And if you have a specific course number that goes along with that, we can also upload that into the system. The grade is actually something that your students will enter manually. This does support both alpha and numeric characters. So if a student makes an A, they can enter that, or if a student earns a 98.7 in that class, they have an opportunity to enter that numeric item as well. Another thing that we can upload for you or assist you with is that we can also put class notes in there. So your students may only be able to take a particular course or an item based on specific prerequisites that you have earmarked. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in a couple more courses, and you'll see that when I dropped in that course, it automatically dropped in the credits and the course number. And I'm going to take a fine arts course, and I'm going to click on Save Information. Okay. So now I have sort of planned my 9th grade year of my courses. What I would like to also demonstrate to you that can also help with that ongoing advisement is that you can actually print out the courses for your students. And there are actually 2 types of print options. So if you go back up to the top of the Course Planner Individual Graduation Plan and you click on Print, you'll have an opportunity to print either what is called a complete report, which details the information of each course by each year, or you can do a condensed report, which shows a summary by year and subject. So let me demonstrate both of those. So on the complete report, I'm going to click on OK. So on the complete report, you'll see exactly what it is that you saw on the screen initially. So you'll see year by year the subject that the student selected, the course title that the student selected, term, requirement, credit, course number, any grade that that student may have earned, and any notes that are specific to that particular course. The other way that you can look at this, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Cancel. The other way that you can look at this, I'm going to click on Print a second time, and let's look at the condensed report. And I'm going to click on OK. And let me widen this for you. So here's the cool thing about the course, about the condensed report. You can see each grade level where the student has planned. You'll see a column for the subject as well as the courses that intersect with that. And you can also see the total number of credit hours that the student has planned for their English, math, science, CTAE, so on and so forth. So if you're trying to keep track of how many courses that student has planned, this would be a great opportunity to use this particular report. I'm going to click on Cancel because I don't want to print that right now. But again, a very useful tool for your 8th grade planning opportunity. And again, they can continue using this throughout their 4 years of high school. The next element that I would like to show you is a new assessment that we have that allows your students to look at their learning style. And so before we had a learning style component, however, this time it is now interactive. So I'm going to click on Home. And this particular assessment is located on the Assessments tab. And it's over in the far right-hand corner under Informal Assessments. So let's go ahead and click on Learning Style Survey, and you'll hear us call it the LSS. And when I click on the Learning Style Survey, this will help your students to identify the way or ways that they learn best. And within our system, there are 3 different learning styles that your students will be able to look into, and this assessment will allow them to figure out which of those works best for them. When your students are actually navigating through this particular assessment, they have 3 answers that they can respond to 24 items. They can tell whether they like a particular item, whether the frequency for them is often, sometimes, or not often. And so, very basic interface. In order to see the assessment, I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner and click on Rate the Item. And when I click on Rate the Items, very standard interface, very similar to other assessments that we have available. Your students will be able to see the element. So this one is, can remember more after my teacher tells me about a subject at the front of the class. So I can select my response. And you'll see that it automatically will navigate to the next item in which they can describe the frequency that is appropriate for them. They have a progress bar at the bottom showing how many are remaining. And as your students click through the questions, once they get to the end, they'll be able to click on their results. So I'm going to quickly go through this so we can see our results at the end. All right. And so I'm now going to click on Results. And based on how I responded to the frequency that a particular element describes me, I will see which of the areas best describes how I responded. So my highest score area is I'm a visual learner, and I scored 30 points on that. My second is auditory, and my third is tactile. Now, of course, students will be able to kind of juggle back and forth between these. There may be opportunities where visual instruction works best for them. There may be other times that auditory works best for them. So we don't want to pigeonhole them into saying you only learn using this one particular way. So for the students to see how they can incorporate visual, auditory, and tactile learning into their study habits, there is a link that says check out learning style study tips. So when I click on that, I get a handy two-page PDF where I can see how I can incorporate this into enhancing my learning. The next element I'd like to show you, and something I'd like to point out to you real quick before going to the next area. Anytime that you're within an item on our system, you'll always see that there's a corresponding tab at the top that'll be gray that will differ from the standard blue line at the top. Again, giving you another opportunity to see where you are within the system. The next assessment that I'd like to show you is our Interest Profiler 60-question version. And so the Interest Profiler 60-question version is a new element that we've added that you can use to meet your 7th grade career advisement requirements for the state. And so previously your students had the reality check. They now have another option. So for the Interest Profiler 60 questions, I'm simply going to go under the Assessments tab. I'm going to go under the question, what are my interests? And finally, I'm going to drop down to the third item, Interest Profiler 60 questions. On this particular activity, your students will look at 60 common activities that they may encounter, and they will tell one of 5 responses. They strongly like it, they're unsure, they dislike it, or they strongly dislike that particular activity. Please note that this particular assessment is available both in English and in Spanish by clicking on Espanol. And then I'm going to click on English to move it back to its default version. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner, click on Rate the Activities. You'll notice that its format and interface looks very similar to the Learning Styles survey, as it does also look like the Career Cluster Inventory survey. So again, giving you a similar interface and look and feel that you are accustomed to. So for the Interest Profiler 60 questions, the first item is Build Kitchen Cabinets. Your students will have an opportunity to log in one of the 5 responses. So I'm going to click through a couple of these, and what can happen is your students can actually save this particular assessment in the middle of the assessment and be able to pick back up where they left off when they log back into the system. So let's say I stopped at number 7. I can click on Save in the upper right-hand corner, and I'll have an opportunity to say something quickly about my assessment, so I can click on type in Stop at number 7. I would click Save Information, and this now becomes a part of my portfolio. So when your student returns the next time, whether it's the next day or when they get home, he or she will have the opportunity to log in with their portfolio username and password, go over to My Portfolio. They will go to the section called Where the Pages and Results I've Saved. They will click on the second option, Sort and Assessment Results. On the left-hand side, I'll have a little table of all of the assessments I've saved. Again, we want to earmark specifically Interest Profiler 60 questions. It says Restore Answer Set 1. Great. It says your answers have been restored. You need to complete some questions before continuing. When I click on some questions, it takes me back to number 7. And I would then continue navigating through this assessment. Now, just between you and I, since you guys are site administrators and teachers, there's actually a quick way for you to get to the very end of this assessment. So if you go up to the Save button, you'll see that there's a little star that's immediately to the left of the word Saved. I'm going to actually go below this little horizontal gray line, and you'll see that my cursor has changed to a little hand. When I get to that little hand and I click my left mouse button, it actually jumps me to the very end of that assessment. So I'll be able to see what areas are of interest to my students. And so you'll see that these look very similar to the Holland personality types. So you'll see whether your student is conventional, social, investigative, artistic, enterprising, or realistic. And you would want to look at your top 3 areas. And again, of course, your students can look at any of the 6 areas. And my highest score area was 34, 33 for social, 32 for investigative. And when I click on any one of these headers, I'm going to click on conventional since it is at the top, I will be able to see a little summary about conventional. So people with conventional interests like work activities that follow set procedures and routines. What I will also see is a chart of all occupations that are typically considered conventional. And so these are initially ordered by career cluster. So you'll see architecture and construction career cluster, art, audio, video technology, and communications career cluster, so on and so forth. And you'll notice that one of the things that we learned from training last year is that we wanted to have a way to differentiate occupations from career clusters. So we have actually added the extension career clusters to all of those items throughout our system, and you'll see that repeated as you navigate throughout GCIS. Within each one of those career clusters, you'll see the occupations that fall within each. You'll see the level of education that it takes in order to become that particular occupation. You'll see the median wage, and you'll see whether it's considered to be a green occupation. And so from here, your students will be able to click on the occupations and then be able to explore those individual constructs. Another thing that you can do, since this is initially ordered by cluster, you can also order these alphabetically by occupational title. So you'll see that accountants and auditors appear at the top. Again, you'll still be able to see the level of education, wages, and whether it's green. And then you'll also have an opportunity to, again, reorganize this, whether you want to see them by education level, wages, or green. So I want to see these ordered by amount of education. And so it would actually show you the occupations and reorganize that information for you as you were to move forward through the system. So let's do education ordered by selected, and now you can see occupations that have a few hours to 3 months. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and then those that require 5 or more years. So again, another way to engage your students and to allow them to see how their assessment results, their interests are related to occupations, and to, again, help them to make an informed decision. If you wanted to go back and see the scores, you would click on My Scores in the upper right-hand corner, and that will take you back to the assessment. I can now save this to my, save the final results to my portfolio, and I can say something like, wow, I am conventional. And of course, this portion is optional for them to have to type in something, but in order to save it, they will have to go through this page and click on Save Information, and now it becomes a permanent part of that portfolio. All right. The next item that I'd like to show you that is brand new for GCIS users this year is an assessment that's called Career Clusters Track. And the Career Clusters Track is a unique opportunity for your visual learners and would serve your students very well at the middle school level. It would also work very well with potentially your special populations. So let's take a look at the Career Clusters Track assessment. So we're going to hover over the Assessment tab, and we're going to go back down to the What Are My Interests section. I'm going to click on Career Cluster Tracks. And so with the Career Clusters Track, this particular item allows your students to look at the 17 clusters and tell whether it meets their needs, it's not them, or they're not sure. And so again, another opportunity for your visual learners to engage in career development. So first they're going to explore the 17 clusters. They're going to rate those clusters. And then at the conclusion, they're going to choose their top 3. So in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to click on Rate the Clusters. And here, you'll have a little scorecard in the upper left-hand corner, and your students will see the individual clusters. And so again, it has a little image that represents that cluster, as well as the actual name of the cluster at the very top. So to look at each one of these elements, your students would have to learn about all 17 of them before they can then make their final decision, because we want them to have an opportunity to be exposed to all 17 of the clusters. So I can start with agriculture, food, and natural resources. You'll see there's a little toggle in the bottom right-hand corner of each one of these elements. And when I click on it, it'll ask me a couple of questions to see if this really is of interest to me from an initial perspective. So I would then click on Explore, and now it tells me everything it is that I ever needed to know about the Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources cluster. So I'm introduced to a video initially, and I also have these little icons over on the left-hand side, and when I hover over any one of them, it gives me a quick little blurb about what that icon represents. So I can look at the Georgia pathways, national pathways, skills, courses, levels of education and training, employment outlook, additional resources, occupations, and programs of study. So I'm going to click on the skills one. That tells me a little bit about the skills that are necessary for that particular element. I can look at the individual courses that might be relevant, and I'm going to jump down to levels of education and earning. So similar to one of the tables that we saw earlier, where your students can look at occupations ordered by the amount of training necessary. And it starts with short-term on-the-job training and goes all the way down to work experience plus a bachelor's degree. And so after I look at this information, I can say, are you interested in this cluster? And I can say, yes, that's me, or I'm not sure, or that's not me. So I'm going to click on Me. It's good job. Use the next button so you can explore the other remaining clusters. And so as I navigate through this component and make a selection for each one of these items, I'll be able to choose my top 3 and be able to add those to my portfolio, as well as add this particular assessment. And so another neat feature that we are excited to bring your way. For our last 10 minutes, I want to show you guys that there are elements that are available on our system that go beyond just the milestones that you have to introduce your students to. GCIS is a whole library of information that is available to your students. For instance, we have different types of financial aid that are available for students that are in middle school. So you can actually start planning for your future and figuring out how you're going to earn money now for your education later. We also have job readiness information inside of our system. We have video galleries. We talk about military occupations. And so again, your students will have an opportunity to look at so many other resources. And just to demonstrate, I'll look at a couple of the financial aid options that you guys actually have for middle school users. If you ever wanted to learn about financial aid components inside of our system, you would actually have an opportunity to look at the Education tab. And under the Education tab, your students will have an opportunity to learn about financial aid. I'm a proponent, it's never too early to start. So if you look on your right-hand side, it says, where can I get help paying for college? And I'm going to click on Learn About Financial Aid. And when I click on Learn About Financial Aid, I can see information like applying for financial aid. And it talks about the different requirements such as eligibility requirements, federal student aid, scholarships. There's even a paying for schools checklist that your students will have an option to look into. But what I really want to draw your eyes to are the actual financial aid titles. And you'll see that there is an alphabetical index of financial aid titles in which your students can navigate through and figure out which items work best for them. And so, two that I am very excited about, there's one that's called Youth Service America. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Y, as this is an alphabetical index. And I'm going to go down to the Youth Service America Harris Wolford Awards. And you will see that your students can enter this particular item, and this particular award recognizes extraordinary achievements in 3 categories, and they look specifically at youth ages 12 through 25. And so your students have until October 19th in order to apply for this particular item. And it's actually hosted by State Farm. Go figure. Another one that I wanted to earmark for you guys, if you have students that are excellent writers, I'm going to click on Financial Aid Titles, and I'm going to go over to the letter N, and there's one that's called National Writers, and you'll see we have a lot of national scholarships. By the way, there's $10 billion worth of financial aid within this particular element. I'm going to go down to National Writers Association Foundation Scholarships. And this particular one, I believe you can actually do this one with elementary schools as well. Scholarships available to talented young writers with serious interest in the writing field. So a student can get this to study either journalism, literature, English, or writing, and they can get a $1,000 scholarship to study at any 2-year, 4-year technical school or a university. So again, definitely feel free to navigate through that construct and see what other elements would work well for you. Other elements I'd like to highlight for you that go outside of the standard milestones, your students will have an opportunity to look at job readiness components. So in this particular area, they'll be able to learn how to use their job search strategies, such as how do I look for and find an occupation. So under employment, I'm going to click on Learn About Job Search Strategies. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to click on Applications and Resumes. This is definitely something that your students want to start with early, because a lot of programs and scholarships are now requiring your students to submit some type of resume or some type of item that outlines what they have accomplished up to that point. So I'd encourage your students to look at the resume section and figure out which one works best for them. So it's not just for those who are looking for employment opportunities. It could be for scholarships. It could be for getting into a program or even getting into a Move On When Ready program. Your students also, and I'm just going to hover over the Assessments tab, they also have an opportunity to look at different types of assessments. If they're not familiar with the assessments, we can click on Learn About Assessments. And when we on Learn About Assessments, your students can actually see that there are different types that are available within our system. And I specifically want to click on Choose an Assessment so that your students can see that there are assessments that focus on interest, personality, work values, skills, aptitude, and abilities. And the last thing that I want to focus on prior to the conclusion of our assessment, we've always had individuals to ask us about military occupations. GCIS does have military occupations and information about joining any one of the armed forces. So if you hover over the occupations, you will see that there's a question called What Options Are Available in the Military? And to learn about the military as a whole, there is item that's called Learn About Military. And you'll see over on the left-hand side, you have the different branches of the service. And you can click on any specific branch of the service, whether you're interested in Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, or Coast Guard. And so if you just wanted to see the military titles, awesome. You will see that there is a tab that's called Military Occupations, and you'll see an alphabetical index of all of the occupations, and your students would be able to explore an individual one to learn more about that specific occupation. Well, the time is now 10:58, and we have come to the conclusion of our webinar. I just wanted to respond to a question that I see here on the right-hand side. Is there any way to create a training account for counselors to become more familiar with this site? Absolutely. Schools actually have access to a generic username and password, which would allow you to explore the system as you so see fit. If you would like to create a training account, over on the right-hand side when you log in with that generic username and password, you'll have an opportunity to create a portfolio. You will enter your information, and then from that point, you'll be able to navigate the same way that a student does. Great question, Kimberly. Well, I would like to thank you guys for taking time out to listen to our presentation. It has been a joy to have you here today, and I hope that you guys have received some type of information that will help you to enhance your ongoing advisement with your students and help you to see GCIS in a different light and see that we have a lot of resources in there that you can use. If you guys still would like to participate in future events, please visit our training page, as there are additional sessions on there. We are going to release a series of recorded webinars that you can go back and listen to this information, as well as a series of walkthrough guides that will help you to navigate through various portions of the website. I have another question coming from Kimberly. What is the generic password and username? It is unique to each one of your schools. I would encourage you to get in contact with your school site coordinator, as he or she has access to that information. If you are the new site coordinator for your school, please have your principal to send us your contact information, and we will go ahead and get that information out to you as quickly as possible. I am going to go ahead and suspend recording.